Hello, hello. Let's see if we got everything hooked up. I believe so. Great to see you once again. Day 2 of the Violympic Trials. And just giving one more look here. Great. Thanks for coming back, and if you're joining the trials for the first time today, big welcome to you. You know, we're forgot to mention yesterday, but we were in Tokyo yesterday. We're in Tokyo again today. The upcoming Olympics that, you know, they were supposed to happen last summer. They didn't happen, but the Violympics happened. We're going to give Tokyo another try this time. Remember that if you are not yet registered, if you're watching this and you're not yet registered for the Violympic Trials, be sure to check the link that's in the description on YouTube, or if you're in the Facebook group, there are links all around there to show you how to register, because you'll need to do that to get the music, the fast rows of summer that we're working on this week, and your journal and daily assignments and all that. It's not a complete experience without all of that. Not much of an experience at all, maybe, without that. So anyway, so great to see you here again. I hope you had a fun first day looking at the fast rows of summer, dipping your toes into the challenges, including scordatura, tuning that lowest string down a whole step. And just so you know, the team here at the Violympic Trials, our tech person, Matt Kinnear, has been busily putting together a new part for violin and for viola that will show you the notes as you would finger them on that lowest string. You know, the parts I've given you show you the notes as they should sound. And I put fingerings in there to assist. You know, they're an option for how to finger them. But many of you might find it easier to read a part that shows you the notes as you would finger them on the instrument, and then they will sound a step lower on that lowest string. Those are going to be coming later today in the Facebook group or via email for those who are registered. So just know that those are on their way. We've got a new batch of assignments for day 2. And just before we jump into that, I wanted to remind you of our general strategy for this week, right? We've got 5 days to really put this together, Monday through Friday if you're doing this, you know, live and on schedule, so to speak. And then the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, is reserved for you to make your recording. And that's a recording that you can share with the whole wide world, or just make it as a challenge to yourself, as a record for yourself. And the version that you might record might not be the same as the one that I recorded, or the one that Burchard Tang from the Philadelphia Orchestra recorded on viola, right? You may choose to make certain modifications to get rid of some or all of the double stops, to not play things on the very lowest string where I go up the lowest string, and even to modify those famous rows. You can use different rows, as I suggest in the modifications. It's all good, it's all fun. And so that's one major way in which you can modify the level of the challenge for yourself. And the other major way, of course, is tempo. Because as I said yesterday, the two big challenges in any project, right, any musical project, are going to be how many new tasks, new skills are you taking on in the project, and how quickly do you need them to come together. And that the quickly, that can mean two different things, right? I've set the timetable for you as far as how many days you've got, right? 5 days to learn, 2 days to record. But how quickly in the moment, in the performance, do you need these various new skills to come together? So for that, we're talking about tempo, right? So this is a very flexible, free piece. You can play the whole thing faster or slower, or the parts that are difficult for you, you can play those more slowly and thus modify the challenge that way. So always want to reassure you about that. Let's take a look at the day 2 assignments. And the first one is about bow circles. It's funny, I haven't yet tuned down. You'll see me do that in a moment. Actually, no, I need to do it now, don't I? I wonder, by the way, how many of you saw in the Facebook group, if you want some scordatura inspiration, John Adams has a fabulous piece for violin and piano called Road Movies. It's just hypnotic and addictive. The whole thing, the first movement starts with an ostinato in the piano, and the violin is playing. The second movement, however, uses the exact same scordatura that we use. Tunes down the G string 1 step to an F. And give that a listen if you haven't already. Road Movies by John Adams, and it's the second movement called Meditative. So, bow circles are all about transporting yourself to a different part of the bow. Here's where I am in the bow, but I'd rather be here, right? So, play a note, I need to get back here. Now, anybody can do that sloppily and noisily, right? The trick is being able to do it without disturbing the music and being able to do it with different timings, right? We even learned that in Suzuki for those of us who grew up Suzuki, but sometimes that skill falls by the wayside. So for this, the reason I'm taking my phone is for my metronome app. I'm going to set it to 60. This is the bow circles assignment. And before I turn it on, I'm going to play the 2 arco notes of bar 4 like that. I'm going to use the whole bow. 1 note per beat. So if I'm clicking it, click, click, it'll be. For now, I'm going to play 2 long notes like that. 2 clicks to play those 2 notes, and then 2 clicks to circle the bow back to the frog. And as I do that, I don't want to circle back like this or any old way. I want to keep that bow, see how it's straight, and hopefully it's straight to the camera. But since it's straight now, I want to circle it back in the same plane. I don't want to move it around this way or that. I don't want to move it around this way or that. And back to the frog. All right, so let's try that. Click, click. So half the bow for each note. So when am I landing? I want to land just before the click where I start the next note. So click, click, land. So just before I need to move is when I land. If I land super early, I'm stuck there waiting. Bad things can happen when you're static. Of course, if I land late, or if I sense that I'm about to land late, then I'm going to lunge at the string. So this is all about getting that timing of the circle. And you repeat at this speed to get that. Now, I'm going to try a bow circle of just 1 click. So the notes are going to be the same tempo. Circle is going to be twice as fast. Click. 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 All right. Finally, with no empty beat. And so now this means I'm going to start shortening that second note. So now the whole cycle is just going to take 2 clicks like this. So now you hear I'm shortening the second note, which is what I do in the real piece anyway. Could you do this whole thing up bow? Yes, you could. Click, click. All right. One empty beat, click. It's harder to land silently for most people at the tip. And finally, no empty beats. Don't worry that this isn't quite as natural. So far from the hand, we don't do this as much in the repertoire. Finally, you can up the tempo, of course. This was 60. You can try at different speeds. Practicing bow circles is one of the greatest things you can do for your hand. And I'll throw in a tip that I didn't write down in the assignments. If you're ever having difficulty just getting the feel and the timing for landing back here and getting started again, all you do is pizzicato. If I turn on the metronome and do a pizz every 2 beats, isn't it amazing how my finger knows exactly what to do, when to make contact with the string and when to release. It's very natural. And my bow should do the same thing. All I have to do is imagine that pizzing motion. And that's a great way. It's a great way to start just about any entrance or piece of music where you have to start at the frog. Just imagine that you're pizzing the string, and we all know that pizzicato can take different forms, right? It's not always bang. Sometimes it can be that sort of caressing pizzicato. Of course, it can be spirited, it can be aggressive, and those are all motions that the bow can make as well. Good. Exploring harmonics. There are a lot of different kinds of harmonics in this piece, aren't there? And the biggest misconception about harmonics that I'd like to dispel right now is that you play harmonics by lightly, just barely touching the string. That's a misconception because that's a recipe for having the harmonic not speak. Harmonics, of course, mean that we don't stop down the string all the way. We stop it partly, but partly doesn't mean just barely. If you're barely touching the string, your finger can easily come off. And now that's, this is the easiest kind of harmonic to play, the one that's halfway up the open string. But for some other touchier ones, like if you try barely touching the string, or even, what you need to do instead is to put your finger on there and depress the string part way. If you want the sound to release at the end, you release the bow first and then the finger. Or so it's for that reason that we're going to be exploring the relationship between harmonics and solid notes. So the very first harmonic we've got in the piece is an octave up the open string. So I play it with a 4th finger. I'm going to slowly depress my finger into the string. Now on my violin, when I do that, and your instrument may be different depending on your setup and your strings and all that. If I just put my finger straight down, hear how the pitch raises up a little bit? That's pretty normal. So as I put my finger down solidly into the string, I'm going to move it slightly flatter to try and maintain the same pitch. And I'm trying to do it as gradually as I can. I'm still hearing a bit of a click when I switch between harmonic and solid. There's more gradual. And as I do that, I develop that it's not just an on-off harmonic or solid, but that there's a whole continuum in between there. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And again, I want to keep the pitch as constant as possible. Got so many harmonics in this piece. In the assignment, I call out bars 19, 27, 33. So let's take a look at those. In bar 19, we've got this one that I play with a third finger. On the violin, it's up on the D string. For the viola, it would be on the G string, a D. On violin, it's on the D string, and it's an A. Once again, putting the finger in, taking it out. In bar 27, we've got that same note. This time on the violin, it's on the A string. On the viola, it's on the D string. Right? First finger. And hopefully what this is training me to do is to feel this harmonic not just floating on top of the string, certainly not solid, but partway in between. That's how it's going to be the most solid and consistent. And when you're doing it for what we call artificial harmonics, which are formed not just with one finger but with two fingers, and the examples of those would be in bars 53 to 56. When you're doing those, keep the lower finger solid and just alternate the fourth finger. So in bar 53, I've got, right, so that top note with a diamond note head. I'm keeping the one solid, just alternating the four. And look at the second to last bar of the page. That's bar 55, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just in case you missed it, the first note, second note. This third note is an artificial harmonic, but it's not the usual interval, is it? It's not a perfect fourth. It's a perfect fifth. Pardon me there. Perfect fourth would sound 2 octaves above the lower note. Perfect fifth sounds 1 octave above the upper note. So, just in case you hadn't played, some people call that a touch 5 harmonic as opposed to a touch 4 harmonic. So, in case you had missed that. Looking now at same finger slides. I love slides. Sometimes I stop referring to shifts entirely. I call them all slides. And I do that for a reason. It bothers me when I, or when other people insist on separating the ways of changing position into shifts and slides, because the implication is, well, a shift is that's kind of the clean way to change positions and to play the notes that we need to play. A slide is, that's fancy, that's a special occasion, might even be in bad taste. The implication, again, is that, shifts we don't hear, slides we hear. The thing is, the truly great players are very selective with their fingerings, and in general, they don't mind if you hear when they change position, because they're going to do it beautifully, and they're going to do it in a way that fits the character of the music. And if they can't change position in a way that fits the character of the music, they're going to choose a different fingering. They're not going to settle for a clunky fingering and just try to hide it. And so I would love for you too to start thinking of every change in position as a slide. Some slides happen when the bow's not moving, right? But I'm still not jumping, leaping off the string, doing this in a mechanical way. I'm sliding up the string or back down, in this case with the same finger. Keeping contact with the string is fun, it's pleasurable, but it also helps me feel the distance. I don't have to have the finger jammed into the string, but there's a connection there. Anyway, this is all preamble to same finger slides, and those are the basis for any shift. Bars 13 and 22 are great examples of that, and those are your assignments. Bar 13 is a descending same finger slide. Bar 22 is an ascending same finger slide. So let's look at those bars, and then I've got some other bars once you've done with those. Now 13 is just a half step, isn't it? May seem hard to feel much of a slide there, but let's do it. There's an infinite number of notes, aren't there, between these two, B flat and A, or E flat and D for the viola. How much distance can you put between those two notes? And as I mentioned in the assignment, when I do that, I want to curl the finger back in a subtle way like this. This is the exaggerated version, right? When I'm going descending like that. When I'm ascending, I want to lengthen it slightly to start the motion anyway. Now with a half step, there's not much motion. After I've started it, there's not much left. So I am just going to curl the finger a little bit. Let's look at 22. This is a ascending same finger slide with the second finger. So again, to get the motion started, to break the friction with the string, I'm going to extend it slightly. Just imagine, if you would, that you've got a heavy bookcase, like a tall, heavy bookcase to move. And so you're going to move it from one side of the room to the other, or maybe you only even have to move it a foot. Are you going to push on the top of that bookcase? Absolutely not. You do that, the bottom's not going to move, the whole thing's going to tip over. You're going to get really low. You're going to brace yourself right at the bottom of the thing, and you're going to extend those legs and push slowly. Get long and low. And that is the same thing we're doing here with the finger. Once the friction is broken, the finger can move freely. But if I've just got the finger stuck down and I try to drag it, it's going to roll over. So to get it started, just for an instant, and then I let the rest of the hand come along. Now the other bars, 26, 30, 41, 85. Let's take a look at a couple of those. 26, of course, if you're planning on going all the way up the low string. Those are the same notes as we just did, aren't they? This is with the first finger, but otherwise it's the same slide. So same deal. To get the motion going, extend the finger slightly. All right, 30. Now once again, it's the same notes. In violin, that's G flat, B flat. 3 times, same notes, same finger slides. Now we're just adding a double stop, so 1 and 2 are doing it together. For each of these, it's great to do them both ways. So, you know, our first one was descending. would be great to go right back up. Or so that while you're practicing one way, you may as well practice the other. But I want you to feel how it's basically the same slide, these last three that we've done, just different octaves, different fingers, always connected to the fingerboard. And those other bars that I mentioned in the assignment do as well. Rebound stroke. Need the metronome again for this. Putting it at 120, though you can find a tempo that's comfortable for you. We're going to play eighth notes there, so just as a... Okay, so eighth notes at that tempo are going to be about... And first, I'm playing on the string, completely connected, right? I'm not going to play... Some people think that that's the equivalent of an off-the-string stroke on the string. We want it smooth. Now I'm listening for the sound end to end. In other words, if I'm hearing that it's... Well, that's that smooth end to end. That's got a lot of articulation at the front, and then it's falling away. Nor do I want... because then I'm getting some scratch some of the time. So we talked about the three variables yesterday, both speed, pressure, and contact point. I want to find a winning combination that's very smooth. So that's two ponticello, that's crushed or scratchy. Now maybe it's not ever going to sound quite like a single long bow, but that's the ideal. As close to end sound as I can get. I'm going to feel how that is in the hand. I want that same feeling now as I take the bow slightly off the string. So same amount of bow, same contact point, same feeling in the fingers. Okay. I'm going to do the same on the D string. I've done this a lot, so it's no problem for me to go from on the string to off the string. For some people, it's as simple as that. It's like a light bulb moment. Oh, I never knew that's how it worked. Don't worry if that's not you. If you take it off and strange things happen. Do look to see if you're changing anything that you were doing. If you're on the string like this, and then suddenly you go off, and the contact point's over here, and you've changed where you are on the bow, and you're using less bow, then there's a reason it's not working. But just keep at it. Explore the relationship between on and off. Then you're going to repeat on the open D string. Once you've tried that, and by the way, it doesn't have to be eighth notes at 120. If it feels like it wants to be a little faster or slower, change the number, or just turn the metronome off altogether and find something that works for you. Then we're going to do, for the moment, I'm going to put the metronome on, 2 up bows for every down. So instead of, I'm going to do down, up, up. Okay? And 3 ups for every down. So down, up, 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 down, up, up, up. Okay? There's naturally going to be a little bit of an accent on that down bow because I'm making up a little bow. I'm getting ahead of the click. This is good practice for me. And of course that is going to apply to that stuff near the bottom of the first page. All right, let's look at connected vibrato, and some of this is homework. If you haven't yet seen a video that I made on YouTube about how to develop a flexible, effortless violin vibrato, those ideas are taken from Simon Fisher's book, Warming Up, and he lays it out very well. I do a demonstration of those exercises, I found them invaluable to, keeping my own vibrato flexible and, yes, even effortless. So we're going to apply those to bars 12 to 15 and 36 to 40. I'll just briefly go over the keys to his vibrato motions. One of them is that it's based on a circle or a cycle, yeah? A lot of folks think about vibrato as up, down, up, down. You do that, it's a little like imagining clapping your hands as two motions. Out, in, right? Can you do that fast? Can you clap your hands fast when you're thinking out, in? It's the least natural thing in the world. What do? Either you can think of bringing the hands together repeatedly, or if you'd like, you can imagine separating them. One or the other of those is going to feel much more natural than imagining out and in, as with vibrato. In Simon Fisher's way of thinking, and it's very effective, there's only one motion, which is up, the up part of the cycle. So, and rather than it being just a completely even motion, up, down, it's more up, 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 up. You're spending more of the time in the up cycle. Not only that, but the down is a passive motion. The down is simply a relaxation, even to the point, especially when you're practicing it, even to the point of letting that finger relax and come up out of the string slightly. So the up is down and solid. The back part of the cycle is passive relaxation. You will develop, through working on the 4 motions that he lays out and that I laid out in that video, you will develop your own mechanism for the vibrato. And then the point is to connect it so that it goes with the line and does not seem just grafted onto individual notes. If this is your first time working with these motions, be patient with yourself. Just work with the concepts. And let's look at bars 12 to 15 and 36 to 40. We're not going to worry about the shifts so much at the moment, but we covered this shift. Okay, so I don't want stop, stop. I don't want that stopping and starting vibrato. I want it passing from note to note, from finger to finger. 36 to 40, same deal, right? Through the shift, the slide. And so those are great places to practice that connected vibrato. Smooth string crossings, and this is a direct extension of the arm levels work that we did yesterday. 24 and 25 are the bars we're looking at first, and after that we're going to do bars 72 to 75. Talked about 4 string arm levels yesterday. Talked about double stop arm levels that go in between, and then all those other levels, again an infinite number, in between the 2 strings. So when I'm playing 24 and 25, I don't want to do the crossing all at once. No. Let me let the arm get the bow as close to the A string as I can, so that finishing the crossing is just a teeny tiny matter right here. Arm leads. Again back, arm leads. If you're playing the harmonics as I am, we're crossing back, back, back. That means I'm going to park my arm right in between those two strings and affect those crossings just with the hand. That's why you don't see this moving during that. So it'll move here, it'll move here, and now. Same thing in bars 72 to 75, same idea. Arm leads. Arm leads. Lead. And then where this really is going to be crucial, especially if you'd like to play fast, are in the fast rows. A lot of string crossings here. These, well, I was going to say blame the composer, and that's me. But these notes aren't exactly laid out in a very convenient way for the bow. A lot of crossings in awkward places and some crossings back and back. Every one of those can be planned. And even if in performance your plan doesn't come off just as you wanted it, the fact that you made plans and worked on them is going to smooth the road for you. So that's one of those cross and cross back. So my arm's just right in between. All right. Every one of those you can work out with the smoothest arm motions. Only one more, and that's left-hand pizzicato. A bit of a special effect, yet it's valuable for learning great finger action. The reason is that when we do left-hand pizz, our finger tends to lift up and back with a nice curve. And that's exactly how it should lift the rest of the time too. Some people's fourth fingers, now, even some fine players will have fourth fingers that do strange things. So not necessarily prerequisite to being great, but you will find playing consistently in tune easier if all your fingers behave the same way. So lifting up and back with a curve. And that's exactly what left-hand pizz can help train. So for this assignment, you're going to place a first finger on your lowest string in first position. So since we're tuned down on a violin, that's going to be what would normally be our open G. It's going to rest there, not squeeze, and I'm going to be checking periodically to see if I am squeezing there with the thumb or that first finger. It's going to rest there on the string, and now pluck the highest open string with the fourth finger. Depending on how fleshy the side of your hand is, you may find that that finger interferes with the open string. So if that's too uncomfortable, you can place your first finger on your two middle strings or something so that your ample flesh doesn't hang over onto the top string like mine is. But otherwise you can, there are always ways around it, but I don't want your hand to be too uncomfortable. This is more an exercise for the fourth finger anyway. Now, rather than thumping the four down on the string and having a lazy pluck, I want you to do the opposite. Approach the string slowly, and then as soon as you make contact, it's as though the string were red hot. And you pluck with great energy. So approach slowly, pluck with great energy. So 10 times on each of the open strings, the top 3 anyway. Okay. Then you're going to do the same thing with a third finger. Pluck with a 3. Again, if that 1 is uncomfortable on the lowest string, put it on a middle string or something when you're plucking the top string. And then a 2. 2 is a little more difficult. This is all for that finger action, getting nice and limber. And if you're doing 10 plucks on the top string and the next string and the next string, that's 30. And if you're doing that with a 4th finger and then a 3rd finger and a 2nd finger, that's 90 plucks. So how fast can you get through those 90, right? We've got 10. And then the 3rd finger, etc. If you're feeling that squeezing, either with the 1 or with the thumb or between the thumb and the 1, shake it out, lift and replace, and just get reset. And if any of this is causing tension or pain, just give it a rest. It could be fatigue if it's just something you're not familiar with, but always safe to give it a rest, and to come back either later or the next day. And those are your assignments for day 2. You know, a lot of people ask, well, you know, shouldn't I be, you know, practicing the piece too? And yes, you can play the piece as much as you feel like, as much as you're comfortable with. Certainly not a bad idea to keep getting familiar with the notes, putting in some markings that you might need for later. But days 4 and 5 are more about putting everything together. So I leave that to you, to your enthusiasm. I would always rather have you come back wanting more the next day than to feel like, ugh, so sick of this piece because I just worked it into the ground today. I don't feel like doing tomorrow's thing. I'd rather have you stay light with it, write your thoughts in the journal, and come back hungry for more the next day. So, once again, if you've enjoyed this and haven't yet registered, make sure to do that. Hit that link, download the materials. And remember, if you're doing this not on schedule, so to speak, hundreds, even thousands of people have done just that before you with last year's trials. You can keep yourself to a 5-day schedule. You can spread it out a little longer. For those of you who are doing this live with me in May of 2021, thanks so much for being here, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great